So we are part of the government of national unity as the Patriotic Alliance. We are not going to vote against President Ramaphosa. We're going to vote with the ANC and IFP and hopefully the DA on Friday. We're going to put one candidate, which is President Ramaphosa, as the president. If people have come to us and said, no, must vote against President Ramaphosa, we are not going to vote against him. We are going to vote for President Ramaphosa Friday because that's what we've agreed on as the leadership of this party. But I can tell you off the record that the ANC, the DA, the IFP, they're also part of the GNU, although they are not being forthright about it. I'm telling you, you hear it here for the first time. We're going to put South Africa first. We're going to try to change things for this country.
So in a really interesting plot twist, Gayton McKenzie, in a really recent live to the Patriotic Alliance members, actually unveiled the fact that the IFP, the DA, the Patriotic Alliance, and the ANC have all agreed so far to form the government of national unity and would likely proceed on Friday in the swearing-in ceremony, while the MK party and the EFF aren't willing to join. He's also noting the fact that the Patriotic Alliance will be fighting for the Minister of Police and Home Affairs and really breaks down the reasons why. Let's listen to Gayton McKenzie speak about this, and I'll be back for some interesting analysis.
Let me give you an update what's happening with the coalitions. We had a meeting with MK first, and the meeting with MK, three things I think we didn't really find each other, but we found each other on one of the last points. We do believe that let me first tell you where we found each other, is that we have complained about the voting, and we are also believing that there should be a revote. Really, if there's an opportunity for where there was discrepancies, for there to be a revote there in the areas where they can't find the discrepancies, or where they can't find the ballot papers, I think there should be a revote. But we will respect the courts. Let's wait for the courts. MK has asked for a revote through the courts, but if the courts grant them, we'll be very happy. Then they explained that the position was President Cyril Ramaphosa. And I was explaining to them that we don't believe that one party must dictate to another party who the president should be. But then they came back with a counter-argument. They said, but we're not dictating to the party could keep him. But we're talking about the country. He's also our president is a country, which I thought was smart what they said. They rebut. I still said to them, but the party deploys the president. So the party must have a choice to deploy whoever they want. We agree to disagree on that issue because I don't believe parties should tell each other who the president should be. Then we spoke and they said we must keep the lines open for future communication, and they would like to form what they would call a black pact of parties that's aligned. We once again said to them, listen, we work with everybody. We've been saying we'll work with everybody. We've been clear on that issue, and we're not about to change that. We're not about to change our position. We will work with anybody, everyone. The meeting ended with them explaining to us, we had questions. We asked, are you going to Parliament? They're not going to Parliament. We wanted to know why you're not going to Parliament, and they were clear. They're not going to Parliament because they don't want to legitimize a process which they feel wasn't fair, and if they go to Parliament, it will be like legitimizing that process. and they are waiting for the courts. They've also written to the African Union, international observers, and the matter is at court. We then asked, why didn't you go to the electoral court? And they said, and they were right. The electoral court has got its own mandate, and the mandate ends the moment the election is done. So basically, I think the meeting with MK really ended on a very good note. We shared notes. We told them our position, that we cannot, we will not tell the ANC who they should put. We also said to them, we will not, we will also bring evidence we have, and then we can share notes. And we wanna, because we are good with all parties. And that's where we left it, shook hands. Then we met with the ANC. So basically you hear this for the first time. The PA is going to be part of the GNU. The GNU is they can deny it all they like, is the DA, the DA, IFP, PA, and ANC. We are part of it, of the Government of National Unity. We met with the ANC. We told them what is it we would like to see. They are going to sit and tell us now we are going to meet again from Sunday till Wednesday. From Sunday till Wednesday, we'll now talk about positions, but not only talk about positions. We're going to talk about how we can sort this country out. So you heard for the first time here that PA is part of the Government of National Unity. Anybody that tells you otherwise, you heard for the first time we're part of it. We're part of the Government of National Unity. We're doing what we think is best for our people. So we are part of the Government of National Unity. As the Patriotic Alliance. We are not going to vote against President Ramaphosa. We're going to vote with the ANC and IFP and hopefully the DA on Friday. We're going to put one candidate, which is President Ramaphosa, as the president. You know, we want to thank the ANC for inviting us into the Government of National Unity. So PA parties are still lying to the people like we're still discussing, are we part? No, I'm telling you the truth. We are part of the Government of National Unity. We must defend the Government of National Unity. So you must know the truth from your leaders. They mustn't say discussions are still ongoing. Discussions are done regarding are we in or are we out. We were the last people they met, the ANC. And the first discussion is, are you in or are you out? We are in as the Patriotic Alliance. I'm saying it again, then you mustn't say we flip-flop next week when we are out. We are going to see what they are offering us. If they come back and they say you must be a chairperson there, we will not accept that. We didn't vote so hard to be given a chairperson there or you go there. We are not sellouts. We are not desperate for these positions. But we can't, it's not just about positions, but positions is part of it. Now, if people have come to us and said, no, must vote against President Ramaphosa, we are not going to vote against him. We are going to vote for President Ramaphosa Friday because that's what we've agreed on as the leadership of this party. And once you agree, you can't say you're going to do something when you come there, it's a secret vote, now we vote for something else. But I can tell you off the record that the ANC, the DA, the IFP, they're also part of the GNU, although they are not being forthright about it. I'm telling you. You heard here for the first time. We're going to put South Africa first. We're going to try to change things for this country.
Yeah, so what do you think? Really brilliant speech. For this video, I just wanted to analyze, to really understand where the IFP stands in all of this. We are clear with the MK party and the EFF. They are quite leftist, oriented parties in their plan for development planning and for South Africa. We know that the DA and the likes of the Patriotic Alliance are more mild to the right and the neoliberal values which they share. But the IFP hasn't really been clear, although most people have been actually, attesting to the fact that the IFP and the DA, such an alliance also with the ANC, would be more business friendly, assuming that the IFP shares in some neoliberal values and all. But for this video, I thought that we could go deeper a little bit into the IFP's manifesto and really understand where the IFP, especially in terms of ideology and epistemes, really sit in this whole debate in South Africa. So it speaks about how the IFP wants basic income, grants, and social policies. Okay, so the IFP is actually fighting for an unemployment graduate grant of 3,000 rand. All right. It also wants to review grants and increase, if necessary, link all grants to opportunities and training. It also wants one community and one social worker, and also to legalize baby savers. So these are baby boxes at NGOs for abandoned babies. All right. In terms of crime and corruption, the IFP wants more powers to traditional courts. The IFP also wants to open a national debate on reinstalling the death penalty, just like in the same way Gayton McKenzie's Patriotic Alliance also wants to reintroduce the death penalty. So the IFP and the PA actually could meet a certain negotiation middle ground based on that policy. The IFP also wants prompt dismissal and prosecution of corrupt officials, irrespective of rank or political affiliation. The IFP also wants the force. He wants to use the force of the South African National Defence Forces in areas where gangsterism is life. And I was just watching a recent interview with Nayib Bukele, in this regard in El Salvador, and how he pacified violent gangsters and violent gangs in El Salvador. And I know Gayton McKenzie usually speaks about this a lot, that the Patriotic Alliance approach to solve gangsterism in South Africa would be to borrow some of the techniques and policies used by Nayib Bukele in El Salvador to maintain peace in South Africa. So we've seen that the IFP also wants to use, in the same way El Salvador used Nayib Bukele, he used the military in El Salvador, engaged and really, intensified the equipment and, training for military service in El Salvador and deploy them against these violent gangs. So we see now that the IFP also wants that kind of perspective where that they can use the force of the South African National Defence Forces in areas rather than just the police. And we saw that how Becky Cele was a little bit, as argued by many people, really weak in fighting crime and gangsterism in South Africa. But now the IFP wants to use the force of the National Defence Force to fight crime in South Africa. Also, the IFP supports and implements the principles of restorative justice. Okay, so in terms of the economy, the IFP wants to curb data costs by 50% through state intervention. It also wants to grow the cannabis and hemp sectors, just like as it is in the Netherlands, where cannabis and responsible use of Indian hemp is being propagated. The IFP also wants to revitalize the Ethala Bank, which is perennially corrupt, a perennially corrupt editor. So in terms of education as well, the IFP is of the notion that it wants to raise the pass mark for, this is especially for matric, to 50%. It also wants to redirect SETA billions to give internships to unemployed graduates in municipal, provincial, and national government departments. IFP also wants free primary education and a focus on fixing NSFAS, the financial aid scheme for disadvantaged students. Okay, IFP also wants to focus on early childhood education as a priority. And also, the IFP now wants teacher accommodation for rural-based teachers. So it wants to introduce a form of an accommodation system for teachers at the rural area so that they can have a form of accommodation arrangement alongside their pursuit of their profession. In terms of food, the IFP wants a South African Social Security Agency food relief voucher system. So it wants to introduce this voucher system that would kind of like represent another portion of the welfare state, but it would be catering to the, requirements for food security, and it calls it the South African Social Security Agency Food Relief Voucher System. Okay, this is the idea of the IFP. The IFP, in terms of governance, wants to elevate the role of traditional leaders in governance, and I believe it will ally with the MK party. The IFP would ally with the MK party in this regard, as we know that the MK party really fights for more indigeneity in parliamentary discussions and in parliamentary processes. So the IFP also wants to introduce more and elevate more of the traditional role of or more of the role of traditional leaders in governance. Okay. In terms of health, the IFP wants to devolve autonomy from national and provincial and local levels. It also wants one regional hospital in each of the 52 health districts and also expand clinic network. It also wants to reduce the high cost of medicine. This is the IFP now. And in terms of jobs, the IFP wants a strict 80-20 ratio for South Africans to foreigners rule across all businesses. So in any organization in South Africa, the IFP wants to see 80% South Africans and 20% foreigners as a requirement, as a prerequisite for the running of a business, or companies in South Africa. IFP also wants job reservation for entry level and low skill sectors. All right. So this is now in terms of land and housing. IFP wants to increase the qualifying income for fully subsidized housing from 3,500 rands to 5,500 rands monthly. All right. It also wants to introduce a housing benefit scheme for those who earn above the subsidy threshold. IFP also wants to subsidize first-time homeowners and also integrate hostels into communities. The IFP also wants a full-scale land audit, right? It also wants state support for new farmers and viable cooperatives. IFP also wants to make sure that communal land stays in the hands of traditional leaders, and also that provincial governments must support the land, support the land to the standard of commercial farms. Now, it also wants to support land expropriation with reasonable compensation. So this is how it differs from the EFF, which wants land expropriation without compensation. The IFP wants to expropriate land, but with reasonable compensation. Okay. IFP also wants to reactivate local agricultural support centers and also to promote public-private partnerships in agricultural development. In terms of migration, the IFP wants to deploy the South African National Defence Forces to ports of entry and borders to fortify them, and also to invest in a national immigration inspectorate. The IFP also wants an all-of government plan to deport illegal foreigners, and this is where it's likely going to kind of like share policies and ideals with the Patriotic Alliance, because both of them want to deport illegal migrants. All right. IFP also wants a 6-month permit review process for all foreigners. It also wants to ensure critical skills visas are issued in 4 weeks. IFP also wants to invoice countries whose citizens are in South Africa illegally and who use healthcare services. So it wants to create direct invoices to those countries whose citizens are illegal foreigners in South Africa. And whenever these illegal foreigners use health services in South Africa, they want the countries from where they are from to pay the bills, on their behalf. Now, in terms of national health insurance, the IFP wants to support universal health coverage. The IFP also wants to redress the funding model of the NHI bill while defining the roles of public and private healthcare services more clearly. In terms of power cuts, load shedding, it says that the IFP wants to manage ESCOM as a public-private partnership. It also wants to cut unnecessary fuel levies. It wants to maintain coal as a primary energy source while promoting renewables. Julius Malema speaks about this a lot, and that is the perspective of the EFF. And also, it also wants to support the green hydrogen economy. Now, in terms of traditional rulers, the IFP wants to protect and sustain traditional leadership through respect, compensation, and capacitation. The IFP wants to amend chapters 7 and 12 of the Constitution to improve traditional leaders' roles, powers, and functions. The IFP wants to extend the Ingonyama Trust land model to other provinces, and that is before 1994. It argues that the apartheid government transferred traditional leadership land in KwaZulu-Natal to the Ingonyama Trust. It says that it's not the most democratic system and is open to abuse and places women landowners as a disadvantage. All right. So the IFP wants to restore that and actually extend the Ingonyama Trust land model to other provinces. Now, it also says that in terms of a reality check, it says that it is an in general anyway. This editor here says that it's an expensive manifesto. The IFP's manifesto is an expensive manifesto that would substantially increase the social wage with hikes in grants and housing subsidies. Yet it doesn't grapple with the necessary trade-offs. It also speaks that it powers the powers that the IFP envisages investing in traditional leaders raises questions on how much South Africa can afford to spend at this level of investing in indigeneity. But anyway, this is a kind of like some brief summary of the 13-point manifesto of the IFP. We see that the IFP shares some policies with the Patriotic Alliance and also the MK Party and the EFF, and so it kind of like represents a really sort of like a strong negotiating partner with these multiple parties who have agreed to take part in the government of national unity. And hopefully, I've seen a lot of comments that speak about the maturity of the leadership of the Inkatha IFP, and that how the party has actually represented a really mature approach to politics in South Africa, and that thus maintaining a sort of like a balance in power and also in economics. But it's been quite a lot of information anyway. What do you guys think about this video? What do you guys think about what Gayton McKenzie shares here? Share your thoughts in the comments.